And welcome back to Outside 50, and this being the 7th episode of our USFootyNews.com podcast. If you haven't had a listen before, Rick and I, hey Rick.
How you doing, Kras?
Pretty good. Rick and I have jumped on the podcast bandwagon some. We just believe there is so much more news about Aussie Rules football here in the US that can be shared. And we're not trying to compete with anyone, just help tell people stories about the development of the game here, Aussie Rules footy in the US. And we are not the only podcast here in the US about footy either. Craig Wessels has a yank on the footy, and Craig is based in Sandusky, Ohio. And he's another one worth listening to. Craig talks a lot about AFL footy and other topics around the US. So give it a look up when you can, a yank on the footy. Our focus, however, are teams, players, admins, and legends of the game here in the US, and not so much about the Australian based news, which seems to be the flavour of the month at the moment. So, in the 6 episodes so far we have completed, we did an intro on ourselves to start with, of course, and then we talked to another original founder of USFootyNews.com, Chris Adams, and his junior football program that he's been running in DC for about 15 years. We followed up in episode 3 where we talked about footy here in the US and the season of 2020, the regionals and the nationals that are coming up, and the other special events, as well as dropping in and talking to Rob Montanaro and hearing about the challenges of developing a team in a smaller college city like Baton Rouge.
Yeah, all of those were great. And in episode 4, we also had a chance to chat with Sarah Roner, who is a former USA Freedom player and ex-Denver Bulldog player who's started up her own standalone women's footy team, the Centennial Tigers, up in Centennial, Colorado, which is the southern suburbs of Denver, if you guys aren't familiar. And then episodes 5 and 6, we followed that up with Christina Licata and Tom Ellis, who respectively are the USA Freedom coach and the USA Revos coach. Of course, they're coming up on a big year themselves. We've got the International Cup, the 2020 International Cup, down in Queensland this year. They've relocated it from Melbourne up to the Sunshine Coast this year. So Tom and Christina are doing a great job getting everyone prepped and ready for that. And we wish them all the best as they go head to head with all the other great nations that are playing footy as well outside of Australia. And now with episode 7, we're actually going to be turning the page a little bit and continuing to focus on the newer USAFL clubs, specifically the 9 different clubs that have sprung up in 2018 and 2019. And today on the podcast, we're going to be having 2 very special guests. We're going to be starting off firstly with Dallas McCulloch, who is the founder and vice president of the Hawaii Eagles. And Dallas is on the line right now. How you going, Dallas?
Living the dream, brother. Yourself?
Doing great. Good to hear.
Well, Dallas, good to have you on. I know it's been a big week for you, or maybe a few weeks, having your game on the weekend against the Calgary Kangaroos. I think we're all looking in on that and seeing how it was going. But you found football a fair way back from that, back in the late 2000s. Can you tell us about how you found the sport and where you've gone from there?
Yeah, you got it. So I grew up west of Detroit, a little city called Battle Creek, Michigan. But I was living in Grand Rapids, Michigan, about 2008, 2009, and I was hitting the pub, and I would come home barely intoxicated about 3 in the morning, and I was super poor at the time. You know, no internet, smartphones weren't a thing. I didn't have cable, so I had the bunny ears on my old TV, and Public Broadcasting 3 was one of like the 8 channels I got, and they would actually play Aussie Rules, and I had no idea what the hell was ever going on. Let's be real here, but I knew that some guys were wailing on each other, and they'd make that really cool hand signal after getting a major. You can't see it, but I'm doing the motion right now, and I thought it was awesome, and it was crazy, and it was just kind of a back burner thing for a while until fast forward. Been on tour with punk bands my whole life, and still do that. Met some friends on tour who are from Australia, and about to hit 30, and I realized I could go do a working holiday visa out in Melbourne. So I was living in Austin, Texas at the time, and saw there was a AFL club down there. So I'm like, well, that's a good way to, meet some people that know the culture, and might as well start playing this game a little bit, do something, get around the boys, and just got super stoked on how awesome the game was. So when I moved out to Melbourne, started playing VFA for North Brunswick, who are currently a D3 squad. They were D4 when I was there, but they ended up winning the D4 and got bumped up to D3. So that was pretty awesome. So basically, I lived in Coburg and just played footy, training Tuesdays and Thursdays, usually matches or metros or something on Saturdays. It was nonstop. And I knew my visa was about to expire, so I moved out to Hawaii to go to school out here. And it was like right after I was training for like 4 months. The season had just started. I show up to Hawaii and I'm like, I got nobody to kick to, but I'm like right in the zone, So, I was been training for months leading up to that. I started playing some of the inter-club metro matches or inter-club scrimmages, and I was just ready to play some footy, and there was nobody here to play with. So I did a call to arms and had exactly one dude show up, this former LA Dragon, and just kind of tabled the idea because it's kind of soul crushing, thinking like I'm just not going to be able to play this game out here because nobody does it. And fast forward about a year and a half, so it'd be September or August 2018. A little bit before that, a guy, Ben Carpenter, Neto, something really Nigerian and complicated. But Ben, my boy Ben, we were aware of each other because he plays for the Austin Crows and plays for the US Revos. And he is, just a phenomenal footy player. But when I lived in Austin, he was living in Australia. And then when I was living in Australia, he was living in Austin. So, we knew a lot of the same people. He had hit me up and said he was moving to Hawaii. And let's have a kick. I'm like, all right, well, that's all the cue I need. As long as I got somebody else here who's going to help, throw some things together, let's give it a shot. So, so he showed up, and then so we tried it again. This time we had 3 people. It was me, him, and then he brought a mate. And so I said I work as a punk rock promoter. I just started recruiting people from the bar, from like punk rock shows. So one dude showed up, and he's got tattoos. He's hanging out and likes to, came to a heavy metal night I threw one time. So recruited him. He brought a bud, and then another guy, I had a ska punk night one time, grabbed him and his girlfriend. They're still involved, show up all the time. The bartender was this other punk rock dude. So it really started out with just a bunch of guys from punk and hardcore and heavy metal shows. And I was like, well, hey, you're a misfit and a weirdo. You should come be a misfit and a weirdo that's relatively active as well.
Wow, cool. So go back a little bit. How many games did you play with the Crows in Austin before you went down to Australia?
I only did. I started training with them in like January, so it was pretty early in the season. I had played like on the Resi squad for. We did a few interclub matches. I went to my first tournament was in Houston. That would have been like right before I turned 30. So played like a match, actually filling in for Baton Rouge. They didn't have the full numbers, and then I played for Resi squad, and Austin's Resi squad is like, they put me on wing, and I'm not qualified to be a wing at that point. But they were on top of it. Like it did not matter, like they're just. I'm sure this is the target audience who knows that Austin they're a force to be reckoned with for sure, and their Resi squad could probably take out most people's A squads.
How did you find a transition down to North Brunswick? You said you played with.
It was similar, but I would say the big difference is, like in USAFL is somebody who's never even touched the ball before, and like we literally had a Brownlow medal winner play with us before, and like they're playing on the same team. Where in Melbourne that's not going to happen. It's like where I'm playing. It's I'm at this point I'm in my early 30s, and a lot of the guys that are playing lower division, that's their case. Like we're not going to make it to the AFL, but get around the boys, go get active a couple days a week, sort of thing. And just do this or sit around and watch YouTube videos. So got to do something. So it's the teams on average are better there, but the peaks are. There aren't nearly as many as complete noobs, but there's also not, like literal like AFL players that will show up either, like we do have here, which is amazing.
Speaking of which, this is actually the perfect segue. Obviously, you guys had Tom Mitchell swing through town last year, right? Sam Mitchell, yeah. Right, yeah.
Yeah,
former Brownlow medalist.
He's won four premieres with Hawthorn. He did 16 years in the AFL. He is currently the assistant coach for Hawthorn. He's one of Brownlow, and he actually his last year he did play for the Eagles, so that seemed very appropriate. I was on tour at the time, so I was in Michigan, or my parents' place outside Detroit, Battle Creek, Michigan. But I was getting the updates, and one of our friends who works for the consulate was at the game. She was, I don't know, goal umpire or something, but she's a huge Hawthorne fan, like just massive, and she was shocked to say the least. Because I mean, to explain to Americans, I figure it's the equivalency of you got a gridiron, amateur beer league club that plays in Australia. You're playing a match, and just randomly Peyton Manning walks by, suits up, and plays for you. Like that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that because I actually played at Caroline Springs in Melbourne in the WRFL last year, and that's just so happens to be Brian Lake's club, and he won the triple premiership with Hawthorn when they three-peated back in 2013, 14, and 15, and of course he spent a decade with the doggies, so the Western Bulldogs. So and yeah, like obviously, like when I first met him, I was like, holy crap, I just met Brian Lake. I played a game with Brian Lake.
Right.
And then some of my teammates who assumed I didn't know who he was, they're just like, mate, that's basically the Tom Brady of the AFL. I'm like, oh no, I know exactly who he is. So that's awesome.
Being in Hawaii has been, Brad, like, I mean, Paul Roos lives here when he's not, it's not football season. He lives here. So he's been out, and him and Jared McVeigh came out and did some level of workshops. We've had girl Smitty, who plays AFLW for Melbourne. She's been out before. We had, I wasn't here for, like, when all the awesome stuff happened, I was on tour. So I was babysitting a bunch of just grown men with drinking problems while, like, other people, I mean, Eddie McGuire came out here and they wanted me to be on Hot Breakfast. They were recording it live in Waikiki, and I didn't. So then we just sent in our president, Cole, who is a big Magpies fan. So he was pretty stoked actually to be on that instead of me. But, it's Hawaii. It's like a pretty high demand place. So people like showing up here, especially Aussies. But yeah, so with Sam Mitchell, the story was him and his wife were trying to walk towards Diamond Head just randomly, and they're like, oh my god, there's a footy match going on, so he just walks up and says, hey, can I play? Another one of our players we put Sam Mitchell in the back line, and it's not that weird, and it's an informal beer league, whatever, like it's not that weird for some guy you don't know to just be playing on the other end of the field on your club. So one of our players is a huge Hawthorn fan. He's playing on the forward line, and he looks back and he's like, oh, that guy looks like an out of shape Sam Mitchell. Then he sees him kick a 60-meter just bullet. Like, that is out of shape Sam Mitchell. He's a coach now. I mean, he's still fit. He's still going to destroy all of us. Don't get me wrong. But when you're not doing those 2-a-day workouts, like, it's going to be a little different. And his wife was hilarious too. On her Instagram, she had a post and it said like she goes, I thought I was going to be so peaceful to get away from the footy for a while and head out to Hawaii. And then Sam joined the local beer league, and it's got a picture of him with all of our crew. And I was against Seattle as well. So Seattle's there. Like, that's wild, but that's what happened.
The stuff you experience in Hawaii. So
while I'm sitting around freezing in Michigan, yeah.
True. I did have another question for you, Dallas. So
yeah,
obviously you guys have grown exponentially within the last year. You guys are playing metro matches, you're all that good stuff. Mm-hmm. And what's the ratio, or the current ratio, of Aussies to Americans at the club? And also, what's the ratio of Hawaii natives versus like transplanted mainlanders?
Okay, so those are some good questions. So first off, I would say the percent of actual like Australians at play is maybe a third. But we've got there would be a couple like asterisks next to there. So for example, Michael, who functions as our captain, he's from Darwin. Then he lived in Canberra and whatnot, but he happens to be a dual citizen. His mom's from Philadelphia. So he is Australian born, Australian raised, but he's technically an American citizen. Another one of our players, Adam, and Adam Sheehan, he used to play for Sydney's, like their Resi squad, in the Sydney League. This is like 20 years ago, but kind of same thing where he's, raised, like he's the most Australian guy I've ever met, but he's a dual citizen from birth. He was born in Chicago, I feel, which is very surprising. So for like what percent of them have Australian accents? Probably a third. another guy. We got a couple other like dual citizens. One kid's from Seattle, but his dad's from Australia. Another kid was born in Melbourne, but he was mostly raised in Kansas City. So about a third. As far as the breakdown of Native Hawaiians, so if you use the term Hawaiian, that's going to refer to somebody who is of Hawaiian ancestry, 100%. Like I would never be Hawaiian. I'm Kama'aina, which means that I live here, but I'm a Hali for sure. We've got, one of our most active players is my buddy Tori. He is super Hawaiian. He is awesome. His buddy Gomes, he hasn't been out for a while. He's been doing some training stuff for work, but so it only had a couple of like actual Native Hawaiians out here, but it's a lot of transplants for sure. Not necessarily just American though. We've had one of our players, Murph. He's Canadian. Like we had a dude that's played quite a few matches with us from Turkmenistan. He was just a dude I met in college, and he played water polo in Turkmenistan. So I'm like, well, he's very like chill, like vegan Hare Krishna guy who will just wail on somebody if they got the ball near him. It's awesome, like my ex is from Sweden. She used to play out here and then started playing for West Footscray out in Melbourne. So we got people from all over.
That's pretty amazing. And specifically, kind of a follow-up question. In Hawaii, of course, there's a good amount of rugby. There's some high-quality gridiron. There's a lot of sports, and it's a very sports-friendly state. As far as it reaching out towards the locals, how easy or how difficult is it to get them to transition from, say, rugby sevens to Aussie rules?
Okay, well, first off, I would never call Hawaii a state. This is the Kingdom of Hawaii for sure, and that's all right. It's all good. But it's the kingdom. So here in Hawaii, originally when I tried getting people to going, I tried reaching out to rugby players. That was my game plan. Like, well, that seems like a no-brainer. There's a lot of Samoans and Tongans and some Fijians and whatnot. And so I've been to a couple of rugby practices, and I don't care about rugby really. My family in Glasgow play. It's all right, but I couldn't get any of them to ever show up to anything. So I just started going different avenues and started recruiting from punk rock shows. So that's been tricky. As far as American football is huge out here. Just in general with everybody, rugby is really big, but pretty much 90% of rugby players out here are going to be like Samoan or Tongan.
Right.
Been at those matches out there, and nobody's yelling in English. Like it is. But we're in Polynesia, so that makes sense. But we've been able to get some people from some other spots. So one of our players, Marin, like she's from California, but she played soccer for University of Hawaii, so she's D1 college athlete. We've had, I'm not going to say names, but we've definitely had a D1 college kicker out here, D1 college basketball players coming out and playing with us before too. So it's sometimes Aussies, but sometimes they're not even, if you got an Aussie kicker on your football club, like, yeah, come on, have a kick, but it's perfect weather here all the time. So people are outside playing sports. So you definitely get some athletic people, that come through.
Yeah, so I was going to ask, some of the first photos and pieces I saw coming through on social media, you're always on the beach kicking the ball around and messing around. So, and then obviously you've been playing games. So I never thought there was a lot of space there in Hawaii where you'd be able to put a field or have a lot of parkland. How have you managed to come up with that?
Parks are everywhere. It's about 25% of the island of Oahu, which is where we live, is all just parks, which is pretty awesome. So where we play is a big spot called Kapiolani Park, and a lot of these were just really set aside. So the Hawaiian government was overthrown by the U.S. in 1893, but they still had some level of pull to be able to set some of these places aside for actual like non-development. So our main spot that we play, that's the case, but the match we played, last week or on Sunday was at a different park. That's, over in a school. They got plenty of space out there. We've played at quite a few different grounds out here. There's tons of open green space. There's green everything because it's, Hawaii. But but it's not nearly as confined as we talked to. Well, I played in like Thailand last year, and in Bangkok, yeah, that's tough to find green space big enough. They do some nines, but even that's a very small nines ground. But here, it's really not a big problem.
Yeah, and you also alluded to previously, well, again, not naming names, but Division One collegiate athletes who have been able to have a kick with you guys.
Yeah.
Have you made any other
Yeah.
inroads with University of Hawaii students trying to get them involved?
Yeah. So I'm a University of Hawaii student myself. UH Manoa is like the flagship campus
Right.
here. And so I recently just formed a RIO, which is a registered independent organization. So University of Hawaii, try to think here. The phrasing for it is, it's called Hawaii Eagles Australian Rules Football Club at University of Hawaii Manoa. They were not an official affiliate by RIO, but they recognize RIOs just like any other sort of club through there. That's not like officially owned by it, but they like we could use their. I did the paperwork, haven't gotten it back yet, but so I think it required 6 different people from the university to sign up on it. So we've got more players than that come from the
Right.
university.
So that potentially
Um,
means that you could practice on campus once the paperwork is complete.
Yeah, well, it's more of use their grounds for. I mean, not for playing as much, but just on like being able to host events. If we want to have a watch party or something like that. I mean, we got a bar on campus too, which is pretty cool. We can do stuff through there. Like it's Hawaii's a real whole different world than I guess like America. When it comes to that sort of stuff, which is nice. It's very uh,
More like Australia.
yes, yeah, for sure. Like it's absolutely. But yeah, so the university, I mean, that'll help, and that makes it so we'd be able to table officially at events and put up like official flyers, as long as you put a little stamp on it that says, it's a RIO, which does not necessarily, represent the views of the University of Hawaii while still being acknowledged by the university, sort of thing. So that's just a way of like covering their ass a little bit, but yeah, so the university, that's a good in, and I mean, I've recruited some buddies just from school, and like one of our players, Alex Marshall, he's from St. Kilda originally, but he goes to school out here, and he's been a saint, and he's a St. Kilda fan, so that's perfect. So he's been a saint on just recruiting like various people from his program, and he was working grounds crew for like baseball and softball games, getting the other grounds crew workers and stuff out. So yeah, the university has been a great tool for us. It's a massive university, and it's very close to where we play.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, Rick had mentioned in another podcast that you'd actually reached out to nearly all the clubs on the West Coast to come and maybe play you this year. And obviously, the Calgary thing came together. How were they the first ones to respond with a positive
Calgary,
offer to come down and play, or did they just decide that they wanted to come?
yeah, I think Calgary had hit us up previously. I was on tour, I think, when these had started, but I had done a lot of kind of the tail end of setting it up. But yeah, I mean, what we currently have is we have one date per month that we've got our field reserved at Kapilani Park, and we figure if we've got a team to play, that's great. If not, we're gonna just flip some coins and play a Metro, Metro Nines or whatever sort of scale it down and just do interclub scrimmage, which is fine. And for any match that we ever have, anybody's welcome to show up. So like I've got so Calgary was just here. They bit, because they want to get out of Canada in February, which is a smart move because here it's 28 degrees and sunny, or 80 for my Americans, and just beautiful all the time. So that's fair. They made a week out of it. Some of them brought the misses, and but like I know in April we've got some other people that are not able to bring a full squad. Like, hey, just a couple of us, from I forget what team there. They're a different Canadian team who said just going to happen to be in April. And I said, cool. We practice Wednesdays at 5:00, Kapilani Park, and we're playing a match on the 18th. She said, we'll be there on the 18th. I'm like, sick. Show up. That's it.
Wow,
Sure.
that's pretty good. And you got nationals just over in California this year, so I would imagine a few of you would be maybe getting over there in October.
Yeah, my flight's booked. Our captain's flight is booked. Our president's flight is booked. Tori, who's I guess he's our resident Hawaiian. His girlfriend's from LA, so he's going down. So, we'll see what we're able to do. I don't know if we'll be able to field a full side, but I could definitely see us merging with some other club. Washington, they're a Eagles affiliate as well. They've been super cool. So maybe we could just try to supply half a team and merge with somebody else, play half a team, and be able to do some damage on some D4 clubs.
And is it the same general plan for regionals as well, or are you guys not maybe not going to be able to carry a full squad to regionals in Denver.
I personally don't have any regional squad or any plans on that. We're in a rock in the middle of nowhere, so it definitely makes the travel thing tricky. But I guess on the other hand, it's like it's nice for us to be able to host people because Hawaii's, I'm going to say, maybe the most high demand place on the planet that people want to go visit. So it's for us, I mean, I didn't move here to leave that often. Like it's not convenient, it's not near stuff. But if I fly, I don't want to fly somewhere to go put on a parka. Like that's kind of lower. I'll do it occasionally, but I try to keep it pretty minimal. But I look at the amount of money. Like last year in Florida, we had at least one of our players. She was out there, but I look at the price it costs to get out there. And I'm like, I could go to Australia for half that. I could go to Japan. I could go to I was playing Thailand. Like there's a million different options because we're not. We're closer to Australia than we are to New York or DC or Miami or whatever, or wherever the stuff's at. Like that's really far.
Yeah, Tommy Ellis mentioned the other night on our podcast how much interest he had in the Hawaii development because you could actually bring teams from the South Pacific in there to play on a Revo standpoint and maybe actually get some Revo games there in Hawaii.
Yeah, I've been in talks. It's nothing set in stone, but I would not be surprised to have them, come through. I don't think he doesn't twist their arms that hard to say, "Hey, do you want to stop off in Hawaii, go scrimmage out there?" And but yeah, our location is awesome because a lot of the Polynesian or like the other Pacific Island clubs, they're not that far geographically, but it's still not crazy cheap to get here. So I know Fiji's got a squad, like Nauru, of course, is phenomenal. Samoa,
Right.
but I mean, like flights from Melbourne. I mean, last time I flew home from Melbourne, it was like $200 or something.
Wow.
So it's
Get out
yeah.
of town.
No, that's it. 250 maybe. So like it's cheaper for me to go to Melbourne than it is to go to to fly to Chicago or Detroit or something to see my family. Um so I just do that a lot of the time and go out that way instead. So I mean, we'd be more likely, I think, to get Aussie squads out here or some Kiwi squads or something than the islands that are closer. Just because I mean, there's Jetstar's got cheap. I mean, that's crappy airline, but it's cheap and it'll get you from Melbourne to here, or Brisbane to here, or Sydney here, and they fly direct, every day, and it's literally going to be a couple
No
$100.
sponsorship from Jetstar, obviously, this year.
One of our guys is the pilot for Hawaiian. He's pretty cool. We'll see if we could come on,
There you
Adam.
go.
Yeah.
Speaking of
Get a
which, funny that you mentioned that, Kraz. I meant to ask you, Dallas, with sponsorship. Obviously, since you have all the connections with the clubs and the bars around Oahu, do you guys have any major sponsors as a club yet, or are you still working on that?
We got zero. I've put like zero effort into it, really. I personally feel a little weird on it. If somebody wants to take charge, I'll hang out. But like I mean, again, I grew up in like the punk rock scene, and it's I don't want to have an Amazon logo on the back of my jersey personally. Like, I just feel like crappy about that. Yeah, so I mean, the real sponsor, the only one we have is the West Coast Eagles, and they have been just so amazing to us. Like they have hooked us up so much. We try to represent them as much as possible and be able to proudly wear this logo here. And we had a watch party for like their the first AFLW Eagles game last weekend, sort of thing. We're always tagging them and everything. They've been amazing. But
So what's up next for? So you have no set game plan for the next game yet? It's still in the air.
we've got the dates booked. So we have Kapulani Park booked 1 day per month through November. So on those dates, we don't have any visitors that are set in stone here. We have been in talks with some folks in New Zealand and then some folks through USAFL. So I guess keep posted to see if we get that. But regardless, if nobody shows up, I don't mind going out and just playing, Metro match
Right.
to hold over until we get out to California in October. But I would not be surprised if, I mean, the season hasn't even the regular AFL season has not even started yet. So I think once it does, maybe people will start thinking like, hey, we should try to do like an end of season bash in Hawaii or something, which is because again, like I don't need full 22 aside. If you get one guy who wants to show up and play, we'll suit him up. West Coast sent us enough jerseys. We got enough for a full squad, no problem. We got enough for 2 full.
Sure. All right, and everyone can reach out to you on social media because that's where everyone sees you these days. So,
And I did have one last question for you, Dallas. Since you mentioned that you guys did like a big AFLW watch party because the Eagles just debuted their women's team, are you guys planning a big bash for the grand final in September?
We will do a grand final watch party for sure. We'll do an Anzac Day party. We did that last year as well. We have just little things. We had there's the International Film Festival here, and they had a film called An Australian Dream, which is on Adam Goods. So
Right.
that was phenomenal. So we do throw things periodically here or there, but yeah, Anzac Day will definitely happen, and that's the people from the consulate have been really cool about that. We try to collaborate with them. We just had like a bushfire relief party, which was put on by nobody from the consulate, but a lot of the consulate people who were definitely involved and hanging out there for sure. Yeah, we don't have a set spot for the grand final party, but 100% sure we will be throwing a grand final party. That's guaranteed.
yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of players have been listening to this tonight, and we'll be thinking about maybe I can just swing a little ride over to Hawaii, especially this time of the year, and come down to training and get a kick in. I'm sure it's going to be a pretty popular destination as you continue to grow and welcome everyone as Hawaiians do. So it's been fantastic to talk to you tonight, Dallas, and thrilled to see you get a game in on the weekend and get some of those game days reward for some of the work you put in and everything else you've been doing to develop the game there. But well, I'm sure you have a few helpers there as well, and just kudos to you guys for getting it up and running and just running on a bit of passion. Sounds great.
Yeah, so keep posted periodically. We always throw it up on Instagram and Facebook, and if you're in town, come hang out, have a tinny.
Yeah, and next up, we get a chance to talk to Justin Ward down in Savannah, Georgia.
How you doing, Justin?
Great. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be part of this podcast.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about, firstly, how you first came to know about Aussie Rules and what got you involved in the first place?
So, about 10 years ago, I lived in Atlanta. I'm a lawyer. I had a legal colleague. We were working on a big litigation, and he came up to me and says, "Hey, what are you doing after work today?" That was my colleague, Eric Baker. He asked what I had done in the past for sports. I mentioned, football, American football, soccer, track, all the regular sports that you play in the U.S. And he said, "Come on out and check out this new sport called Australian Rules Football." And I went out there for a practice and I got hooked. Learned how to cook or learned how to kick and do all sorts of good things. And after that first practice, I was hooked.
Oh, I can relate. I can definitely relate. My story's a lot crazier. Like, again, I played rugby, and I mentioned it in the previous podcast a little bit, but it just so happened to be right place, right time. Playing rugby and hearing about Aussie Rules from teammates or former teammates, and then happening to be at a bar at 1 a.m. in September, and the only thing on TV that's sports is AFL finals. So, and then I was hooked. I was like, okay, I'll YouTube this, I'll look it up, and the rest is history. So that first training, that first exposure is just awesome, and there's nothing really like it. So yeah, and with Savannah, when did you move down there, and what prompted you to start a club from scratch?
Yeah, so when I started in Atlanta, it was like the community league had games, the city league back and forth, and then the Cookers had a couple of games and got really involved and participated as much as I could. Went to a few nationals, and unfortunately, with my position, I was working in a law firm, working 10 hours a day, and it got a little too much for me. So I switched over to the in-house role, and that was in Savannah. So that's a good 6 hours from Atlanta. So moved to Savannah, and I've been here for since 2012, and I miss playing. So I've been here. I haven't had the opportunity to play except for when I drove back to Atlanta and talked to Kraz and wanted to help and expand the capabilities of the South and start a team with Elliot Zabo, who used to play in Nashville, and started a team here.
That's terrific. And as far as starting a club from scratch and trying to get recruits to come straight away, and obviously Savannah's not huge. It's decent size, but it's not huge. And in terms of Aussies gravitating towards Savannah, I'm sure there aren't that many. So, what was your priority number one when it came to recruiting new players and getting the word out and telling people about footy and what it can bring to the table for sports in Savannah?
Yeah, what we try to do is there's a big park downtown Savannah called Forsyth Park, and we started up a Facebook page and got people to come out and check us out. And the main way that we're able to get people to play is they see us play in this big park. So they see us kicking around. They ask questions like, "Hey, what are you guys doing? Is this rugby? Is this soccer? What's going on?" And we're able to, tell them that this is not rugby, and displace that huge myth and teach them about the game. And we've had as many as 10 people at a practice, and people are excited. It's a new, different sport. And but on the other side of things, there's not a lot of Australians down here, so it's a challenge getting some Australians to play. And but we've had good success in the first year, and we're going to continue the success and get more and more people.
Yeah, so Justin, last year we had a Savannah Invitational game where another new team, recent new team, Jacksonville Saints, came to play, and some guys come up from Tampa. That was haven't been there. I was there myself. That was a pretty good weekend. Hey.
Yeah, I agree. It was a great weekend. It had a bunch of people come from, like you said, Tampa Bay, Fort Lauderdale, Jacksonville, and Jacksonville has been a great partner as well as Atlanta, helping us grow and helping us play when we all get together, get the numbers up.
Yeah, and you travelled yourself down to Jacksonville to play a game later in the year.
Yeah, we started in Atlanta for the Invitational, had a bunch of teams come up, and then after that went down to Jacksonville and had a good time and had a lot of players. And we actually had someone from the LA Dragons come, a recent guy that had just moved down to come out for a kick, and had a great time. It was good meeting everybody, and just want to continue it.
Yeah, Joe Silvio, right? From LA.
Yeah, that was him.
Yeah, Joe's a good buddy of mine. As you probably know, he's U.S. Air Force, and he and his wife Lonnie were stationed out in L.A. for quite a while, and we got to know them really well. Lonnie is probably the most passionate person I've ever met regarding women's footy. Like, she's addicted to it, and she recruited so many girls to come to LA and give it a crack. And Joe is obviously a fantastic player, midfielder. He's been around for a long time, and obviously they're down in Cape Canaveral and there's no team. So Jacksonville is the most logical place for them to go right now. But no, that's awesome. And he's a great veteran player to have around.
And Justin, you teamed up with Atlanta at the national championships as well with the Jacksonville team. That was how long was it since you'd played at nationals?
I think it's been about 3 or 4 years. The last one I went to was in Austin, Texas. I've also been to the one in Mason, Ohio, and actually Austin on another occasion as well.
And rocking around to this year, we've already got an invitational tournament on the map on May 2nd, and that's a tournament where I believe we're inviting teams, and especially men's and women's teams, to come down to Savannah to play. That should be an awesome day.
Yeah, we're super excited about that, and we're truly grateful. We've gotten all the help from all the teams, and we're excited about the tournament coming up. We're gonna have a big old event and lots of games and lots of social events afterwards. So we're super excited.
Yeah, that's the perfect opportunity for you guys. And not just you, but with Jacksonville and Tampa. It's a good time to be a footballer in the Southeast, I reckon. So that's going to be nothing but positive for you guys, and I'm excited to see how it turns out. Hopefully, you guys get a few wins.
Well, yeah, we definitely hope so. And one of the best things about the growth in the Southeast is you don't have to drive 15, 20 hours to play a game. When I was in Atlanta, we would drive all the way to Baton Rouge, all the way to North Carolina, Ohio, Fort Lauderdale, all sorts of places that are a little far away. If you want to have a kick, it's nice to have something close like Jacksonville, Atlanta, Rome, and even Tampa Bay.
Yeah, so tell us, tell the listeners as well, Justin, where Savannah exactly is and how far are you from cities like Jacksonville and Tampa?
Jacksonville's about an hour and a half away. Tampa is about 4 hours. Atlanta is a good 4 hours, and we have Charleston up in the north that's about an hour and a half away. So hopefully Charleston will have a team at some point in the future. Another city that's nearby is Greenville. I was in Greenville last weekend, and that would be a great place for a future team.
That's Greenville, South Carolina, yeah?
Yes, South Carolina.
Oh, I agree. When you get up into Columbia and upstate South Carolina, there's a lot of great athletes and a lot of real passion for sport. Obviously, you have Clemson up there, and my grandmother's side of the family is actually from that part of South Carolina. So it's a good environment if you want to play sport. So that's really exciting. And so as far as moving on to the next question, as far as recruitment goes, have you guys strictly been doing practices for the men's team, or have you guys had a few co-ed trainings, or what are you trying to recruit women for a women's side as well? Is what I'm saying.
Yes, definitely. We're trying to recruit both men and women. One of the main challenges that we have is there's really not a college that we can get players from that's nearby. That's the young 20-year-olds. The nearest one is Georgia Southern. That's a good hour away. Downtown Savannah is SCAD, which is an art school, and we don't have too many people interested. So it's more of young professionals and different people, but. We're definitely recruiting both men and women. My co-founder Elliot Zabo, he's the one that played in Nashville, and he's co-founded the team with me. And his wife comes out and plays. She used to do roller derby, so she's a tough one, and she puts on the hits at practice and gets us motivated. And people come by and see both men and women playing. We're hoping to grow and get as many people as we can.
Yeah, and since the weather's obviously not too frigid, usually, have you guys been able to do a few training sessions already, or are you guys waiting until March and April to really get things started off for 2020?
That's one of the great things about Savannah is the weather. We can pretty much play year round. It's not very often it gets below 50 degrees. So we're going to start our practices in March and get the teams going and try to get as many games as we can. The summer months are a little hot, but we've done games in the June and July and August and haven't had any issues. So it's an ideal location for playing footy.
Yeah, so along with the tournament on May 2nd, I know there's a three-way tournament style event, Atlanta, Jacksonville, and Savannah. So I know Atlanta will be visiting Savannah twice this year, once for the tournament on May 2nd and once for the three-way event. And actually, the first of those is in Jacksonville in mid-April. So that'll be the first game, I believe, for all of us. Well, actually, not for Atlanta. Atlanta is playing Rome at the end of March, but the first games for Savannah and Jacksonville will be in Jacksonville on in the middle of April. I think the week after Easter.
That's awesome. And you guys are in a really good position, I reckon, because with the driving distances and things like that, it's a perfect region to do a little metro competition. Over here in LA, we have the SoCal Metro season where we do round robins with San Diego and OC, in the Metro competition, which is 9-a-side, 12-a-side, it depends, but usually 9-a-side, and that runs from like May to the end of June. And then we have the regular season starting with regionals, and then we also do the SoCal Cup, which is the exact same thing, just full 18-a-side, and whoever wins best 2 out of 3 walks away with the chocolates, as they say. So I feel like you guys are in a really good position to really maximize those regional rivalries. So the sky's the limit with that, I think.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, we just probably need one more team, maybe 2 more teams down here, and I think there'll be a time when we don't have to do those long drives anymore. Regionals this year is up in Cincinnati, and I can tell you that's a hell of a drive for anyone who's in Florida. It's about 6 hours from Atlanta as it is. So, as we continue to develop here in the Southeast, the Atlanta team and Savannah and Jacksonville, hopefully we'll even become to a stage where we might even get regionals down this way, which would be a huge boon for all 3 clubs. But we'll wait and see on that.
Yeah, there you go. So one last question for you, Justin. Do you guys have a schedule lined up besides the tournaments and everything? Do you guys have a full home and away schedule lined up just yet, or are you still nailing that down?
Yeah, we're fine tuning the schedule now. We're looking at about 8 or 9 games, and we're going to publish that in the beginning of March. One of the most exciting things that we have going on right now is our jumpers. We're about ready to get our jumpers all ready, get them ordered, and be ready for this season. Last season we was our first season, so we had to borrow some jumpers, thanks to the good people in Atlanta for the games. But this season we're going to have our own, and we're putting in that order tonight, so we're super excited.
So lastly, I assume you guys are on social media, Facebook and Instagram, things like that, just so people can find you.
Yes, we have a website, savannahfooty.com, as well as social media. We have Facebook, as well as Instagram. And one of the things that we're going to do this year to try to increase the numbers is a meetup app that'll give you the practice time and schedule and try to get more people out there. So we're going to invest some time and money into that, and hopefully get some more and more players.
Awesome.
Well, thank you, Justin, for taking the time to talk to us today on Around the Grounds, and we'll look forward to hearing back later in the year and seeing how your season goes, and certainly maybe after that May 2nd tournament down there in Savannah, we can get an update and learn about your progress. Little steps, as they say. Being one of the new teams from 2019, they don't get built overnight. And like I said, we had seen teams that are even 2 or 3 years old still take time to develop. So there's plenty of time. And as long as everyone enjoys their footy and has a good time, you'll do pretty well. So best of luck.
Yes, thank you. We're super excited about 2020, and we're truly grateful to all the help that we've had from you, Kraz, in Atlanta, and helping us get going with our club and getting the numbers up. So we greatly appreciate that, and thank you. I appreciate you guys having me on the show. Thank you very much.
Cheers, Justin. We'll be in touch again shortly, hopefully.
Good luck, Justin.
Outside 50 is brought to you with the help of Play Aussie USA. Play Aussie is the only place in the USA you can buy the famous Sharon football, a proud sponsor of the USAFL. Visit them at playaussie.com.